Every day I got up, I was busting out of the door, which I don't do, to go to work. And when I got to set, I was pleasant, I laughed, I joked, I was on time, I was word perfect. Being Australian is actually a win-win in this country over here because we're funny. If the French try and tell me off before noon in the morning, like, time out, guys, I'm Australian. Dieter's no longer with us, which is just, I think, a devastation beyond comprehension. The beautiful thing is that you remind yourself of when there's a good moment in your career, it can't be repeated. You know, if somebody wants to compete with me and they're a man, I'm like, okay, great. Oof. Trust me, you won't win. You won't win, but go ahead, you can try.
Melissa George, welcome to the Stella Podcast.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
And for you and me, Melissa, this is the first time I've seen you since 2006 on
Yes.
set of a film that you shot with Josh Hartnett called 30 Days of Night and was filmed
Exactly.
in New Zealand. So feels like a little lovely full circle moment for me to see you again, but also your new project, Ms. X, which is dropping on Binge this weekend, June 30, that was also filmed in New Zealand, and you play a character who finds herself caught up in the Auckland criminal world. So lovely full circle moments of sorts.
Love it. Love it. It was lovely for me to arrive and see the same crew, and you get the comment like, wow, it's been 2 decades, but we're all still here, we're all still working, and it was one of the greatest experiences. I mean, 30 Days a Night, of course, but going back as a grown woman and remembering all the places I visited, and of course I forgot a lot, but just to be there with the New Zealand energy is just wonderful. It's, dare I say, very similar to home.
Yes. Well,
Because
yeah.
I start seeing things and I in my mind, I'm like, am I in Australia? No, I'm not. Oh, but it's so close. Oh, but you feel like I was coming home, which was really nice.
Let me ask you a little bit about the character that you play in Miss X. Is Mia Bennett. She's as I mentioned, she's a suburban mum in New Zealand who finds herself caught up in the criminal underworld in Auckland, as you do, and she's navigating that while trying to deal with PTA politics and school
Yes.
homework. On the surface, it seems incredibly far removed from the life of Melissa George, glamorous television and film star, jetting around the world to shoot on location, attend fashion shows. But of course, you are a working mother yourself. Are there more parallels than it might appear?
It's fantastic, actually. That's what drew me to the role, was the fact that you have this sort of washed up, really suburban mum that doesn't really have much going on except the ring on her finger. She goes to all her friends, I'm married. She's very proud that she's been married. And then she finds herself doing such criminal things because she has to in order to survive, to protect her family. But she treats all the mafia and the gangsters and the drug dealers and the PTA mums like they're her children. Like, have you eaten? Wear the appropriate outfit. And she ends up being one of the greatest mafioso bosses that New Zealand's ever seen, just because of what her husband put her through, without giving too much away. And I love that she becomes, day by day, finding a new skill, something that she never thought she'd be so good at, and ends up winning, one of the biggest deals to ever happen in Auckland, which I find just so funny. And it wasn't meant to be, I don't think, that funny. But it was the chemistry between Dean O'Gorman, who when we did the sort of chemistry read on camera, I just thought, I cannot wait to do this with this actor. The two of us, because there's no romantic interest. That's what's so funny about it. They're just locked together because they were old school buddies. They get into a car accident. He says he's a PI. I think my husband's cheating. I don't get my car fixed by him. I ask him to investigate, but he says he's really good at it, but he's terrible at it. So now I'm stuck with this really bad PI with me, and I'm just like, okay, this is all too much. While her life is falling apart, they're also trying to run the biggest cocaine drop in the world. It's just like, it's total nuts.
It's such a great premise, and there is great chemistry on screen, and it's very funny and quite absurd at times, and it's got a really good dark humour to it. How do you find that moving between genres? Because so many of your roles have been very demanding from a dramatic perspective.
I mean, I think back to when I was in Australia doing The Slap, and that was very dramatic, based on a book, very serious topic. It sort of comes easy to me, those kind of sort of roles. This one, luckily, the direction from David Lynch and Hannah Marshall, who wrote the show, was just, if you just be that person, it will come across as funny in a way. It's not meant to be funny, but my God, I laugh out loud because of the certain things that they chose, whether it's the color of the car they changed my car into, or my little haircut that they did, this short little thing. I look like a little, hopefully it was a good idea. Thank God it's grown a little bit since. But yeah, it can be difficult to do comedy. But I didn't think I was doing comedy at all. It was just Dean and me. Like, that's all the way the director will place the conversations happening in the ladies' toilet. It's also sometimes just the set that makes it funny, or, my husband's funeral with the cardboard cut out of his head, but they chop him at the legs. And, like little subtle things make the show more humorous than it should be without even trying. So yes, it was actually quite an easy transition.
In terms of accents, because you've grew up in Australia, of course, in Perth, worked in
Yes.
Australia for quite a few years. You were only 20, though, when you moved to LA, and you've been
Yes.
living in France for a while. How does it
Yes.
work
Yeah.
for
That's
you
always an
with
issue.
accents in different roles?
I mean, over here, I'm not really speaking English much, which is a bummer. That's why sometimes I like to just go to an English-speaking country for a very long period of time. Um, I think when I was doing the show in New Zealand, I don't play a New Zealander. I'm not gonna do any disrespect to their accent because I just didn't even want to try. So I did my Aussie, you know.
I would hazard a guess that would be one of the more difficult ones. I think especially maybe for an Australian.
For me, I didn't want to do it to them because I'm just next door and I'm already struggling enough just being back here. I just, and it was too much for me with, I had a new baby and I was like, okay, I've just got to focus on the role. But the funny thing is getting back to the slap, because obviously it was very Australian. And then when they remade it in America, I played the same role in the American adaptation because they couldn't find Rosie anywhere in the States and to play her. And I was like, okay, well, why don't you get Melissa? And I had to play a Brooklyn, New Yorker in the same part that I played in Australia. This was an incredible challenge, but also a much easier accent, I think, than the Kiwi accent, I would say.
How did that change you forming the character? Did you find that you brought a different character with
Oh,
that accent?
well, selfishly, what I did take out of it was some moments, because they changed the order in the American adaptation of the slap. So some moments, I loved it because I was the only original figure of the entire series that was shooting with Uma Thurman and all the cast in America. And when it came to the slap day, they were all freaking out on how to do it. And I just sat back with such a, because I know what's coming. I know this role. I know what's coming for the whole show. But I loved it because I got to redo moments that I didn't have time to do in the Australian one. So I got a second chance at it. And I got to push it a little further in a direction that I didn't get to do with the original. I mean, I'm a bigger fan of the original than the American one that we did, but I feel that there was some great moments that I prefer, to particularly the order of the slap coming, the court case being at the end of the show, not so much the middle of it.
Do you have a favourite role? Is there something that really springs to mind if people approach you?
I think for now, my favorite would be what we've just shot on Miss X. But when I was doing 30 Days a Night, getting back to that, I was casting for In Treatment, which was the show between two actors in one room. And I won the lead because when I was fighting vampires in 30 Days of Night, I came home from a night shoot covered in blood and I set up the camera. Instead of doing the audition of 4 pages for In Treatment, I did 40 as a monologue that went for I think maybe an hour of recording. And then I condensed it and shipped it off during the night to LA, covered in blood from vampires, not having slept all night. And I got the part. I got the part In Treatment as the psycho patient, Laura, and the whole show was shot in one room. And this for me was one of the highlights. And I remind myself daily now that when you go the extra effort for a casting, when you put yourself just a little bit more for any job, this speaks for any job in the world, just go a little bit further than what they've asked. You may get the benefits back. And this was one moment for me where, the hard work was put in, the craziness of the fact that I did the whole show for them as an audition showed them that I'm a bit crazy, which is Laura, the character anyway. And so there was a lot of similarities that I showed them that I would be the perfect one for the job. This story, actually, I haven't told anybody, but I got the part, but I was fighting vampires in the snow in New Zealand, and they couldn't ship me out to shoot the pilot for In Treatment that I got. So we somehow said to the producers, I'll put my double in to do the background walking. And I quickly flew to LA for 2 days to shoot the pilot of In Treatment and then fly back. And the producer of 30 Days a Night called the set of In Treatment in LA and said to the director, Rodrigo Garcia, congratulations on your first day of shooting. How's it going? Who did you get for Laura? And Rodrigo Garcia said, I got Melissa George. And the producer in New Zealand's like, what? She's on my set.
She's my leading lady. You can't have her.
Isn't she in New Zealand fighting vampires in the snow? And then he looks again and you can see like someone that looks like me. It wasn't me at all. Just walking in the background.
Yeah,
it was
had like you standing.
I'm not on camera. I'm not on camera. Like, come on, and oh my God, everything just went. Like I had to quickly shoot the pilot. I had to take my long brown wig off. I had to shoot fast. I had to get on the plane. I had to go back to New Zealand in the snow. But the funny thing is that I was just trying to do that extra effort to just nail that role and just please everyone, please just understand that this is a life-changing role. And we ended up doing a great job and the show got picked up. And
it really was a life-changing role. I mean, I imagine it feels like, actually, to say you've had a few life-changing roles might sound like hyperbole, but it feels like you probably have had a few life-changing roles. And that definitely
has been. And there's been a lot of like good decisions, I would say. But I do reflect recently that sometimes when your personal endeavors are so strong, meaning survival in the real world, not as what you do for a job, surviving day to day, living in a country where you're not from, doing the French admin, taking care of children in a foreign country, being a badass mama for these kids, showing them that being Australian is actually a win-win in this country over here because we're funny. We're so funny. If the French try and tell me off before noon in the morning, like, time out, guys. I'm Australian. You're going to, with perfect French. So I've got the humor of the Aussie. Underneath the language. And they're just like, oh God, we're not going to deal with this one. We're not going to fight this one. And I love that I have children that are Aussie because it shines through in difficult times where they make fun of themselves, make fun of the situation, make life light. But getting back to, there could be a lot more roles. There could be a lot more, I could be super, super ambitious and leave everyone home and just go off all year round. But my personal draw to be personally successful is just as great as being professionally successful, if you know what I mean. They're both on par with each other. And I think that's what gives me a happiness and a glow and a good feeling still. I'm not burnt out or.
And that balance, which sounds the closest to the quote unquote perfect balance that any of us can aspire to,
Sure.
wanting and being fulfilled professionally and personally at work and at home. Is that something that has been a hard-won balance for you? And I suppose seeking that balance as a young person it probably would have been skewed maybe in one direction for you, not to transfer that on me.
It's been skewed because to be here wasn't my choice. It wasn't my choice at all. So I think the beautiful day came when you accept that decision's been made for you. You didn't make the decision for your family. You were told basically this is where you're going to have to be. It was definitely not my choice at all. And I think when you accept that day, that's when everything opens up, almost like faking it, I would say. Convincing yourself that, wow, thank you for this opportunity. I know that that's not really what I feel, but I say that daily. Like, can you believe it? look how lucky we are, kids, look how lucky we are, look where we live, But I know that that's just a way of coping and getting through. But now I'm like, what, the decision was made for me and there's no mistakes in life. You're meant to be here. All I have to do is go to the airport and fly to where I'm from, or go where the work is, take the right roles, don't burn yourself out, come back home. But, once you accept, that's when joy starts. That's for sure. Where I really started to kind of live in the moment and just be happy, really. Because that, everyone's healthy, right? I'm not stuck somewhere where I'm not happy. Everything's nice here, but it's not home. That's what hurts. So by going to do Miss X, this was just, I could feel it. Even when I got off the plane, I was like, ooh.
Did you manage?
Like similar food, similar vibes, similar everything. I was like, oh, I loved it. Absolutely loved it.
Did you get to pop back home while you were
I wasn't allowed because I was the lead of a show, but my family came over. My mother visited because I just had a baby with Leo. So that was lovely that she got to see, her grandson. And I loved it. I loved where I was living. I loved the whole feeling, actually. It was a really good break for me. And also to do what I do best, I can do other skills, of course, but I like to be on a set. I like to tell stories. I like to be good at my job. And, but I love being a good mum. I think that's the parallel of the character, was just fighting for your kids. And it's interesting how far you will go to make sure that they're in a good way, your kids, It's never been about Mia. It's never been about Mia, the whole show. It's never been about, and then she gets a taste for it. And then all the gangsters are like, you're really good at this. You might want to keep doing this. And the best moment is when she's in the truck and she looks back and she sees 600 kilos of cocaine, but she forgot.
Just slipped her mind. So a lot going on. She's a busy woman. She's juggling.
Okay, how am I going to deliver this? How am I going to deliver this? Like she forgot this part of the whole strategy. I laughed so hard.
Well, she got straight back to focusing because you want a job done. You find a busy working mother. Am I right? Like you're going to rise to the occasion.
There's no
every
better
organization
person than a mother that has a lot of children.
Damn right. Yep. And no one that you want to mess with less in this world. Just will say that. As Mia has
I think
proven.
it's great. It's a great concept. And when I got the script, actually, I was at a train station and everyone called me and said, listen, we're not sure you want to do it, but, they've offered it. They would be so happy to speak with you. And so I read it and I was like, oh, boy, wow. And then I got to episode 2 and I missed my train.
That's a good
One
sign.
train per day.
One
Nightmare.
train per day. Oh, my God.
One train per day where I was going. And I was like, oh, that's a sign. So I sat there, missed the train, kept reading episode 2, kept reading episode 3, went and got a coffee, called everyone. I was like businesswoman at the train station saying, I'm doing it. I'm doing this job. Let's get on the Zoom. Let's make sure this happens. I think it's freaking hilarious and fabulous. So, I knew that because I'm very on time. Huh? So to miss a train must be that the show was so good for me that I had to do it,
For you, Melissa, as you have expressed, navigating a lot of logistics, it means relocating yourself and then the separation being away from the boys, that ensues. Yes. Would I be right saying there must be things that cross your desk that simply are not worth that?
Oh, so much. So many cross my desk. I spent the last 3 years doing Mosquito Coast in Mexico. This is a great example of, I think because the role was so big and it was with Justin Theroux, it was the lead for Apple. We were shooting one of the best books on the screen. I won the role out of, I don't know how many girls. I didn't cast for it for 4 months on purpose because I was so nervous and sick. Like I would make myself unwell because I knew I had to leave my children for a little bit. And so I didn't read for it. 2 reasons why: leaving the children, and also I couldn't handle rejection because I'd been stuck in France. I didn't know how to get out. I couldn't. And so I didn't read for it for the fact that if I lost the role, it would be too much for me to handle. So I thought, no. Then Justin Theroux called because we did Mulholland Drive together 20, 30 years ago for David Lynch. And he was like, you need to read for it. And then the casting director said, she's already read for it. And I said, no, I haven't. And my new agent of 1 week in New York, she was like, if you don't read for it, we're done. This relationship's done. Like, I can't be your agent. You need to read for it. I've got everyone calling me. I got Justin, I got the casting agent, and you have had it for 4 months and you haven't read for it. I said, no, because I can't not get it because I love it too much, and I also can't leave the kids. So I set up a camera at about midnight because apparently my agent was going to drop me. And my 2 kids were in their bunk beds. I was living outside of Paris, and I did this scene, on the phone call scene, and I was like, I even moved myself. Like, it's very hard to move myself. I moved myself, and I thought, and the kids yelled out, what are you doing? Because I was yelling and I was crying and I was doing this scene, because God forbid, it's been 4 months in my heart. And I yelled out to the boys and I said, I'm building a future. That's what I'm doing. And the kids said, okay, Mummy, but you sound a little bit distressed. You sound a little bit distressed. I said, it's just acting. Your mum's an actress. And they're like, what's that? Yelling out. And I said, well, you pretend to be somebody else. Okay, so you're not distressed? I said, no, I'm just doing a scene. And so I did it, and they gave me the part. And I sat down on the sofa in tears, and I said to my 2 sons, I have to work, kids. I have to work. Otherwise, I have nothing to give you. And that's when the survival of a mum is at its peak, when you take a job that that they're not going to be eating baguette and butter. They're going to be eating sushi, maybe, or they're going to go on a better holiday, or they're going to have a better life. And this was the catalyst for me to say, it's okay. You're going to go away. And I did, for 3 years, I did back and forth every 2 weeks. I didn't care. I was on that plane, and if I was not on that plane, trust me, I turned gray. I couldn't do 1 more hour without smelling my children. And they knew this. They knew that was the deal. And that was it. That's how I juggled it. I took the punch. I went for it. I dealt day by day. I didn't think too far in the future. And at the end of the day, what are you going to live off? Air? No, we need to, as mothers, we have to work with balancing the love. And that's how I got through it. And Miss X was the same. Exactly the same. Just flew back and forth.
As you say, your youngest was only born not long before you went
No.
to shoot Miss X. Let me ask you a little bit about, raising the next generation of men is the world's most important job. And part of that, I suppose, what you've also just spoken about, role modeling to them, that
yes.
You as a woman, I think, this should not be a revolutionary concept, surely, in 2026, but still a little bit of judgment around women that are working.
Yeah, women that are working. I know there's a lot of judgment around that, but I don't know. I think we can do the job just as good as men, so if not better.
Yeah.
So stand in line. Mm-hmm. I've never been I have to be honest, I'm not a real feminist. I don't fight for it. I just stand as an elegant woman, and that speaks enough. What am I going to compete with a male? No, they're fantastic. Men are fantastic. Go ahead. Do your man thing. Do your man thing. I'll do my woman thing. And at the end of the day, it is what it is, but I don't participate. I don't compete. This is beautiful. I show my sons that I don't show them anything. I just act with love. I want them to have good memories of a female figure in their life. I want them to always have their tummy full with the best food. I always want them to respect women, of course, but respect men too. It's not just man or woman. I try to blur that line a little bit. I'm not interested in the man versus woman too much. If somebody wants to compete with me and they're a man, I'm like, okay, great. Trust me, you won't win. You won't win, but go ahead. You can try. But I think with my sons, they're lovely. I'm seeing, I've got a 12-year-old, so we had a lovely trip to Club Med recently, and, Club Med for a 12-year-old is paradise. He really got to be himself. And I just put the frame, strict frame, but he can move freely within the frame. That's a French parenting. You go to bed at 8:30, but if you stay up for half an hour, the frame is bed at 8:30. And what you do in there, if you want to stay awake for half an hour, that's great. But the frame is strict.
That's
but
great.
With freedom. With freedom.
So he could read a book or do some colouring in or something like that.
Whatever you want to do. But, the frame this is the rule. And great, you just went to your bedroom, we've got to go to sleep. We've got school in the morning. You've got college. The French education is tough. Very tough. Very, very, very tough. And I think that puts a lot of strain on them. But the Australian humor has helped my kids survive because, like I said, I don't care if they're born here, raised here, whatever. There will always be the Aussie thing pumping through their body. And I think that's what's helped them get through tough times. That's what helped me get through every tough time, was having a good attitude. And that's from being where we're from. And yeah, so for the next generation, I don't really pay too much attention to it. I just take day by day and make sure that they're honourable and easy and sweet and kind and respectful, and that's it.
Now that your eldest is 12, are they starting to understand a little bit more what it is that you do and your public
Yes.
persona?
Yeah, they do. It's really funny. That's the other thing is I don't talk about it. I'm not interested in saying, oh, look what mummy just did, or, I think that's a bit narcissistic. I don't. Sometimes they say, oh, mum, on TikTok, there's like hundreds and hundreds of montages of all your work. And then they'll be like showing me, and they're like, is this you? And I'm like, yeah, I don't add more. It's like, yeah, that was me. But I'm their mother, I'm their mama. And that's the most important. But then sometimes they're like, wow, you did that? And I'm like, yeah, but it was a long time ago. Just, play it, play it down. But I also do come home and they're like, oh, what did you do today in filming? And I said, oh, I had to deliver some cargo in New Zealand, some bad things. I had to deal with some bad guys today. I had a few weapons, They're like, wow, your job is completely nuts.
Is there any sort of overt Australian traditions in the house, Vegemite and the toast in the morning?
There's so much Vegemite. I can actually see plates of it right now. Everyone in the house had Vegemite toast this morning. Everybody.
Yes.
Everybody. The 2-year-old, the 10-year-old, the 12, everybody. Me. This for me, I get the French bread across the street, Weirdly, in Australia, we have the best bread, I think. But, I have my Vegemite shipped in. I have my Milo. I have my Dilmah tea bags. It's Australian, all of it. I got some Cockapoo chocolates from Rottnest Island. I got some Cockapoo sent in. The kids are like, they make boxes of raisins covered in chocolate, and the title is Cockapoo. And my kids are like, what's a quokka? And I show them the animal, and they're like, so my son was doing his homework last night with a bowl of Cockapoo, which with the little box, and I was like, this is so Australian.
I love this visual of you with this baguette bought across the road in a bakery in Paris, eating it with Vegemite, and then your son having the bowls of Cockapoo. If that's not the perfect summation of all of the different parts of your life,
there will never be anything that will replace anything but all the Australian things that I was raised with. It's impossible. And they put ham and cheese now, like in Australia, where you put that inside your croissants or whatever over there. They don't do that so much here, but I do it in the oven. That's very Australian.
That's do. Very Australian. I love it. So you're not a purist. You're okay. All right.
No. The Aussie blood is covered in this house. It doesn't look very Australian, but it is.
You're talking about, your eldest son being 12. And looking back, I, commented earlier how you moved to LA. You were only 20. And you moved from Perth to the other side of the country to star on Home and Away. I believe you were only 16 when you were on set.
Just turned 16, yeah.
I mean, that is crazy, just turned 16. I imagine at the time, well, I won't speak for you, but I know for all of us that have once been 16, you don't realise how young you are.
No, that's true. You kind of wing it, really, at that age.
Yeah.
But I was, with kudos to my parents, they said, we love Home and Away. We love that show. It was our favourite show in the house growing up. We were only allowed to watch Home and Away. And so the fact that I got the lead of Angel at 16 on our favourite TV show, my parents were like, how the hell did that happen? And they were like, well, we can't say no, love, because we're going to see you on our favourite TV show. And it came with a lot of stress, I would say. I was moving houses a lot when I moved over. I had no secure family base when I was over there. And then I got to live with Liz Mulliner, the casting agent, who did Shine and Babe and all those big films. And she cast me in Home and Away. And she promised my parents that if I was ever in danger or I had nowhere to live that was comfortable, because I think I was the first actor to come from another state to join the show for such a big role. And so it was a big responsibility. I had no parents all of a sudden. I had no family all of a sudden. So Liz said, come live with me in my house in Paddington, my glorious. In fact, I was saying last night, is it for sale, anyone? Does anyone know if that house on Underwood Street in Sydney is for sale? And they're like, oh, go check it out. Maybe it is. You could put a little letter thing. This home for me was the beginning of my independence. I lived with Liz Mulliner and her 4 children. She was the head of NIDA at the time. So I would come home from set of Home and Away and we would have George Miller at the table. Kate Blanchett would be there. I was helping her do the casting of the voices for Babe, Pig in the City, because she did all of that. So we would lay on her bed after a full day of filming Home and Away and listen to pig sounds and duck sounds and choose the ones that we liked. My education of cinema and the business was through Liz Mulliner. I lived there for several years. If I was sick, which I often was because of being so young, working such hard hours, she would take the day off work. She would nurse me back to health. I learned so much about life and all of that through Liz. And so being on Home and Away at 16, my gosh, was one of the best. Well, first of all, a great role to play, a street kid that already had 2 kids that was off the bay coming into Summer Bay, and she had the braids, which was a brilliant idea because it ended up being so iconic. And all of a sudden I was learning how to act on time, on action, cool cut, being like a master at pulling a performance out because you only have 5 minutes. It was the best training ever. Really.
It sounds like such an amazing, formative experience at every single level. And then it was such a lightning rod, Melissa, because, you get cast in that role. And as you say, it was already a pioneering, someone so young, first person from interstate. I mean, if it went nuclear, you were everywhere.
It worked really well. It worked really well. And I think Liz also, when I got my first pilot in Hollywood, called Hollyweird. I put myself on tape, but Liz trained me to record that. And then I flew to LA with a handbag, and then I got the part, and then I couldn't leave LA. That was it. I was like, But LA was easy. It was an easy transition from Sydney to LA. There was nothing. And then when I got a bit wiser, I went to New York City because, there's nothing better. I lived at the Chelsea Hotel for a long time. My God, I was 19. I lived at the Chelsea, and then I was like, this is where I'm going to stay. Like, I have to be in New York City. I couldn't go back to Perth because I was already working. So even though the draw was to come back to Australia, and it still is actually, I was saying to friends yesterday about the house on Underwood and, God, wouldn't it be a dream just to move home and all of that. And I have friends here right now from Sydney staying with me. So that's why we're always talking about Australia. But New York was great because I cut out the middleman by going to New York, because LA, you're always available for meetings because you live there, but they actually don't really like you. But if you live in New York, they have to go one extra step, either fly you in, send the casting person to New York or whatever. And if they do that, then they know they really like you. Or you just get a nice day off. Whereas in LA, you work too hard, but they didn't want you, So New York City was the greatest decision by cutting out the middleman, I would say.
You really have lived and worked in the best places in the world. Has there been anywhere that you ever aspired to live and you haven't lived or worked for at least a time?
No, I've worked and lived in London for quite some time, but my love for interiors and real estate, and I would say antiques and all that, came from Argentina, from Buenos Aires. I'm a huge soccer fan, football fan. Even my friends this morning do my hair and makeup, they're like, you like soccer? I'm like, guys, I got a place in Argentina, in Buenos Aires, because Messi, his club was right down the street from my house. It's like, I just love it so much, which is so not me. I think getting back to your question, Buenos Aires for me was my education, I think, on sort of artifacts and, doing homes and making things kind of lovely to live in. And that I got that from Argentina. I think if push came to shove, it would be, it'd obviously be Sydney or Melbourne, actually, because I love Tina Arena so much. We're really good friends. And so Tina's like, I'm back in Melbourne. I'm like, babes, is there a house on your street?
Yeah, that's right. If Liz's old house isn't available, get Tina looking for somewhere in
"Mate, come
Melbourne
on,
for
guys.
you.
Come on, Australia. Like, get me something. I want to I want to be next to my buddies back in Australia."
You mentioned Mulholland Drive earlier, the
Mm.
David Lynch film. So actually this year, so it was released in 2001, so it's coming up to
Mm.
its 25th anniversary. That film, I think, Melissa, love to hear your thoughts on this. I mean, it
Oh,
was an incredible film at so many levels,
yeah.
but in classic David Lynch style was very much ahead of its time, and not only talking from a narrative perspective and a creative perspective and a cinematic perspective, but in terms of the storytelling, it was very much foreshadowing some of the darker side of Hollywood, which
Yes.
I don't think was really being surfaced at that level until, possibly the Me Too era.
I mean, I was very young when I did Mulholland Drive, super, super young. I think getting back to the fact that we didn't really know quite what we were making. You never really do when you're on set. It's in the vision of the director, but I knew that David Lynch is such an icon. And the way he casts, I'm sure you've heard this many times, is he has Joanna Ray take a Polaroid picture of your face, and then he puts the faces on a table and he meditates on them, and he does this sort of thing on your faces or whatever, and he just kind of hones in on, and he was like, "This is the girl," that iconic line, and that was me singing the song. Um, and so I got the part just based on a Polaroid. And then when I showed up to set, he just was so emotional because he said, "Better than I expected." He was a very kind man. But the funny thing was, is I had a very large role. I had a huge role, and it was me, Naomi, and Laura Harring, and it was a pilot for ABC. And so I thought we were doing a TV show. So my role was going to go on for many, many years. And then all of a sudden he calls. I just got married. I got married in Bali. I get a call from David Lynch. I think the wedding was a few days before the phone call. And he said, "It's your dear friend David, Melissa. Could you fly back? I'm turning it into a movie." And I was like, "Oh, what do you need me to do?" And he's like, "I really don't know right now what I need you to do, but I need you to fly back." So I left all my family and friends after the wedding in Bali. And I flew back to LA to shoot, I don't know what. It's just David Lynch. You don't say no. And I turned up on set and he said, "Oh, you made it." I said, "Yeah. I just got married a few days ago in Indonesia, but that's fine. I'm here. And what do you need me to do, David?" And he goes, "I just need you to walk into this dinner scene and make out and kiss Laura Harring for a very long time." That was it. I was like, awesome. "Laura, good to see you. Action, okay." And I walk in, and there's all the Canal Plus people at the table, and there was Naomi doing her beautiful scene where she's getting jealous of me kissing Laura, and that's all I had to do. That's all I had to do. I left set after kissing Laura Harring all day with my dress that I had on, the pink one. He said it's a gift. I was like,
Least he
"Thanks,
could
Dave. I
do,
still have
David.
it.
Yeah.
It's my gift," and a bottle of red wine from the Canal Plus guys, and that was it. That's all I had to do. And then I was on a plane, and I saw some execs from ABC, and I said, "Why didn't you make it a TV show? I mean, why wouldn't you, like Twin Peaks or whatever?" And they said, "We never saw the pilot."
Oh, David Lynch, what did you do with the
That's the
pilot?
rumor. He never even submitted it. So the whole plan was to make a massive budgeted pilot, but actually all along turn it into a film. That's the story I got, but I'm not sure if it's the story. But the fact is, he knew all along it was going to be an amazing film. An
A-
amazing film.
And it really was. And it just made it so, thanks for sharing that because, we heard about it for so long. And
Mm,
obviously for me, that was such a David Lynch fan. I knew that you'd been cast and just felt like it was in production,
sure.
I mean, from years and years and years. And
Yeah.
then the eventual film. And I love that story.
And Justin Theroux, like I said, he
Yeah.
was the director and the lead of the thing, and he says the iconic line, "This is the girl," and then 20 years later, we're married in the jungle on Mosquito Coast.
I mean,
That's amazing.
what moments to have
Beautiful
as
moments.
part
They're
of your
classic
life
moments,
story.
and like in any job, you often think, "Oh, I did that thing, when I was nominated for a Golden Globe," and I'm like, "Why hasn't it happened again?" And I'm like, "Well, there was a writer's strike, then there was COVID, then there was the actor's strike, and there's a lot of delays on your career." But the beautiful thing is to remind yourself of when there's a good moment in your career, it can't be repeated. It's happened, it's in your heart, it's there forever. No point in trying to outdo it and trying to win that again and again and again, because it will come if it comes. If it doesn't, you still have that memory of doing that amazing role, and nobody can take it away from you, you know? And so I think I have a very relaxed attitude about that. Sure, I would like to be doing more, but I know that there are constraints, and the constraints are real. I'm a grown up, I accept them. But I wake up happy, I'm not angsty or what's coming or none of that. So that's good.
Melissa, I'm not sure if you saw recently the Kylie Minogue documentary on Netflix.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh,
a lot of parallels, obviously, between the origins of her career and the origins of your
sure.
career. I remember when you
Yes.
won People's Choice Award very
She
early on.
presented me the award.
Exactly, in a really
Yes.
beautiful moment because she's
Mm.
someone that you had grown up aspiring
Oh,
to,
love
and
her.
there you are. Um, I was thinking, certainly during the documentary when I watched it in preparation for talking to you today, about how really that era that she, the Scott and Charlene era on Neighbours that she is revisited, that I would argue of all the iconic soap maps, we didn't really see that era again in Australia and I think by extension in the UK until you were then on the show. And
Shane and
then
Angel.
Shane and Angel became the Scott and
Absolutely.
Charlene. I mean, there's very few people that can relate to that sort of
I
formative
agree.
experience of that.
Oh, it was fame at its peak, huh? I would say it was very crazy to sell out Westfields and to have 5 levels of fans and wow, 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 wow. I was very young. The power of Shane and Angel was huge. It was exactly the same. I don't
Mm.
know how many years after Kylie's character on Neighbours, but I know that the similarities were exact. And then the recording contracts come through, the offers to be a singer, getting flown 5 times from Australia to London to meet with RCA Records and all the big bosses. And and after about 5 meetings, I said, guys, you understand that I can't sing at all. Like, at all.
And what did they
Like,
say?
have you even asked if I could sing after this first-class trip from Australia to London to sign me up to be the next pop star? They were like, "It's okay. We'll just work with it, we'll work with it." And I'm like, "You don't understand. I wanna be an actress." So I suggested to them, I won't say who, but I think it's out there in the media somewhere. I suggested to this one boss, "Why don't you put me as the lead of a huge film, and I will do the soundtrack?" I was singing the soundtrack, and you can do whatever you want with my whatever, but I want the role in the film. And they said no. They said no.
It's a good offer. And that was a
So I
very,
left.
very smart proposal, by the way.
So I thought that was a very bold of a 16-year-old to say, you could put me as the lead of a big film and I'll do the soundtrack. And that was it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Annie Lennox was in the room next door. I had, it was very tempting, big money, big contracts. Kylie Minogue's my idol. Let's do this, Melissa. I got offered every pantomime. I said, I can't sing. I can only act. I'm a very simple woman. I can act good. That's it.
You
No
sure
voice.
can act good, because that was a
But I try.
speculation at the time because the parallels were strong and everyone was like, great,
Yes.
here's the new, we've been waiting
Kylie.
for our
Yeah.
new Kylie and Jason, now we have them. And then now of course Melissa will go off and record a song and follow that
Yes.
trajectory, and that is not at all what happened. So I can only imagine the
And
offers.
then nobody can compete with Kylie, I'm sorry. I mean, she is just iconic in every way. And I love when she comes to Paris. I love sitting with her. I love talking with her. We giggle about all sorts of things, which will remain silent. Many, many stories go back and forth. She allows me to bring friends to her shows. She'll always come back and give you a cuddle. Like this for me is it's beautiful. She doesn't forget a face or a name, or when she presented that award to me on stage, that was just pure gold for me. Like, she's amazing and she's beautiful. I mean, you've seen her up close. This
Beautiful as
what a
she is.
what a beautiful, beautiful woman inside and out. So
It was
yeah.
great to see I thought the career in all of its diversity and the
Mm,
longevity and the resilience and the
mm,
adaptability to be really celebrated in that documentary. I
yeah.
thought also it's just, I think, so interesting. her looking back on things, and we see her going through, you know, mementos. How nostalgic are you? And do you go back and watch things? But for you,
Sure.
there's obviously on-screen wedding. Then there's also, you know,
The death.
the death
The death of,
exactly of Shane.
you know, like seeing, I do watch often because obviously, you know, Dieter's no longer with us, which is just, I think, a devastation beyond comprehension. That's just I would say, too many years of him suffering that was overlooked. And when you suffer in silence and you don't reach out, I think that's when it got to a point where it's too much for him. But it really breaks my heart because he was a beautiful man. And it's very sad, actually. I'm not one to kind of comment or step out or make comments that people are going to use for years to come. You know, I've already done that and suffered the consequences of that. But I sort of kept silent. But, you know, there was nothing. Shane and Angel was everything. And I did rewatch the scene when he passed away on the rock, and, you know, up on the beach there where it was the final scene of Shane. And it was just heartbreaking, absolutely heartbreaking.
And that Hunters and Collectors plays.
Oh
You'll
my
throw
God, this
your
song! No,
arms
I just got
around me.
goosebumps all over my body. The fact that we got that song and it keeps playing. I listen to that song. I mean, I'm going to cry now. If I listen to that song, I'm a mess. I think about him. I think about the past. I think about being grateful for the opportunity to have had such a great part. And it's funny because life is very long, isn't it? It can be very long. And I'm trying to think why a lot of us are still around and haven't sort of gotten to the point where we're gone crazy or lost our ability to be kind or whatever, because things have been rough, I would say, for a lot of people. But there's something, I think it's friends, really. I look back and I'm like, oh, when you have love of friends and family, then that's the one that keeps you each day getting up with hope. It's okay. It's going to work out. And being good to yourself, really. I'm kind to myself. I say, it's okay. Yesterday wasn't great, but today will be better, you know. But looking back on the history, like Kylie was doing, I feel it's beautiful. You know, like I said, there are moments you can't take away. We did it. And honestly, to be that young and to have that role and to be financially independent from such a young age, that's a true gift. I recommend that for everybody. If you can just get yourself for women mostly, because I think stereotypically we back in the day, you know, we do depend on men and all that. But if you can just be, you know, hold your own in your relationship, hold your own in your life, you will never suffer, because you know that if everyone fails you, you've got your own resources. And that's the skill. That's what gets you up in the morning and putting one foot in front of the other, because you only have to depend on yourself at the end of the day. It's fantastic, girls. Best advice to women. Best advice to just talk about yourself. And women are doing that anyway. They're all got jobs. The thing is, if we can just up the maternity leave, the paternity leave, because trust me, when that baby's born, who wants to leave the baby? You just can't. You just can't. So if we can just do the maximum to give that mother the most with her newborn, and the father, then I think that's the skill to real happiness. Don't take the mother away from the baby too soon.
I love every single thing that you just said then and agree with everything. It's hard to follow that up, but I might just end with my final question, Melissa, which is that you're actually going to be turning 50 this year.
Yes.
You know, you've also spoken about living in France, and hopefully the rest of the world is catching up. Not sure what your take on that, but that we're, thank God, finally starting to value women in all chapters of their life. And I think someone like Kylie Minogue is a good
in
example
France,
of
the
that.
older you are, the more sought after, you know, which is beautiful. I like being in a place where there's no surgery, we don't touch our faces, we don't do anything. We eat well, we eat slowly, we enjoy life, we work less, we play more. All of those sort of things has helped me be. I know, because I'm turning 50 in August 6th, and I'm just trying to think about where I'm going to be, because everyone wants to make a fuss, and I think I'm just going to hide in Greece somewhere
That
under a
sounds
rock.
pretty spectacular, by the way.
I'm just going to hide in Greece with, like, where no one can find me, eating a beautiful Mediterranean diet, swimming in the Aegean Sea, But no, I'm not going to be doing anything, I don't think.
I mean,
It's everyone says it's a remarkable milestone, but I feel like I've got so much to do. I've got Miss X, I've got, I want to go back to New Zealand. I want to work. I want to do these things. And I think all my children know that my 10-year-old who I just spoke to earlier, he reminds me constantly that I'm going to be 50.
oh, yeah.
He's like, "You're going to be 50, Mum." And I'm like, "Oh, okay. Yes,
Thanks,
sweetie.
sweetie. Yeah.
Thanks, sweetie." You've
No.
got little people that are witnessing your every move. This keeps
Mm-hmm.
you very humble.
Mm-hmm. Melissa Georgie, has been such a pleasure to talk to you. It
Thank
really has been.
you.
Congratulations on the new show, Ms. X. It premieres on Binge on June 30, which is just a
Yes.
couple of days away. It's a fantastic series. But speaking to you, the woman that brought that character to life, has really been an absolute joy.
Thank you so much for the time, and I feel happy to speak to an Australian. That makes my day,
Hi.
It's very nice for me, so thank you.